It's colder tonight than usual, and I'm sitting in the studio with a thick cup of black coffee, trying to shake off the drowsiness. You know, some nights I receive letters, especially stories that, after reading, leave me in long silence, wondering if they could possibly be real. The letter I'm about to read to you tonight comes from a man named Ben. He's a driver for a ride-sharing company, specializing in night shifts. And according to him, the night isn't just about darkness. All right, let's begin. This is Ben's letter to Jeff and the show's listeners. I've been driving a taxi for over 10 years now. There are rules when picking up passengers at night that not everyone knows. There's a reason we fear the dark. That familiar sense of unease when you're driving alone in the pitch black, even if you see no one else on the road around you. It's instinct, a warning etched deep into our bones, because there are things out there, entities we can't explain. They don't show up on cameras. They don't care about your pepper spray, but they follow rules. Ancient rules, perhaps rituals. I don't know where they came from or who created them, but I've learned this. If you follow the rules, they'll leave you alone. I just never expected to experience that behind the wheel of a goddamn taxi. People think being a rideshare driver is simple, and they're right. Mostly. You drive, you chat if they want, you drop them off, you get paid. No boss breathing down your neck, no office politics, no deadlines, just the open road, your car, and a playlist long enough to entertain you between rides. That's why I started this job. After quitting my old one, I didn't want to deal with people anymore. Seriously. I'd been a mechanic for 20 years, opened my own shop until my knees gave out and the business hit a dead end. Rideshare apps came along at the perfect time. I didn't have to smile if I didn't want to. I didn't have to solve anyone's problems, just get them where they wanted to go. Daytime was easy. Students going to school, nurses on double shifts, people without cars going to the market. Honest, quiet work. Sometimes I even enjoyed the short conversations. I liked hearing about their lives, feeling like I was doing something good, even if it was just 5 stars and a soft thank you. But at night, everything changed. The air grew heavy. People became strange. I remember the first time I heard about the rules of the road after sunset. Not guidelines, not suggestions, rules. They appeared on the app just as the sun began to dip below the horizon. And if you broke them, well, it was better not to find out what would happen. I know this sounds confusing at first, so let me explain. Every night shift started the same way. Right after dusk, the app would vibrate and emit a strange sound. Not the usual notification beep, but something low, guttural, and moaning, like a storm siren, though on a much smaller scale, of course. The screen would go black before a blocky font appeared. Night shift protocol operates from dusk to dawn. 1. Do not look directly at the passenger. Use the rearview mirror if necessary. 2. Do not accept more money than the fare. Never accept gifts. 3. Handle only one ride at a time. Never allow multiple passengers in the car simultaneously. 4. Ensure the last passenger is dropped off before dawn. I reviewed them every time, even though I knew them by heart. I didn't know if the app updated them or if something darker was watching to make sure I read. Either way, I never skipped that screen. Not anymore, at least. I'd made the mistake of ignoring the rules once, and once was more than enough. I'd never really been superstitious. When I first started driving at night, I even laughed. Rules like these seemed like a joke, some kind of mysterious tech company campaign. The kind of thing that gets circulated on Halloween to show they're hip and creative. But the problem is, these rules are real, and the consequences are even more so. I learned that the hard way. It started with something small, just a guy who insisted on paying double. He said he appreciated my service, said I looked tired and wanted to bless me. He pulled out a crisp new $100 bill and gently placed it on the center console. I said no. He insisted. I said no again. He smiled and tucked it into the cup holder. It's yours anyway, buddy. I didn't touch it, I just left it there until he left. I mean, what harm could it do? The guy didn't look like anything special. A middle-aged gentleman with salt and pepper hair slicked back, reading glasses, a t-shirt, and a vest that gave me easygoing surfer vibes. Then I looked up into the mirror. He was still there. I'd heard him leave, heard the door close behind him, and watched him disappear into the darkness. But he was still there, grinning. His eyes were entirely black and his lips moved, saying something, but the words didn't match the movement. Like a broken puppet trying to whisper a prayer. I couldn't believe my eyes. I reached back, my heart pounding, the seat was empty. He was nowhere to be found, except in the mirror. He was there for the rest of the drive, still smiling, still mumbling. I parked in the farthest corner of the apartment complex lot, locked the doors, and went inside. The $100 bill was still exactly where it was, untouched, vibrating with some subtle, unseen pressure. I could feel its presence everywhere I went. Was something trying to get me to go back for it, to spend it? I wasn't sure, but I needed help making it disappear. I contacted support through the app. No hotline, no names, just a form with a single question. Describe your incident. I typed everything out, the passenger, the tip, the mirror. I waited, feeling utterly foolish. 24 hours later, I received a response. Protocol violation recorded. Corrective steps required before work shift can resume. Burn currency. Avoid seafood for 2 days. Thank you for contacting technical support. That was it. No apology, no explanation, just instructions. I picked up the $100 bill as if it were a loaded gun, surprised by its weight. I went to the alley behind the apartment complex and burned it in a soup can. The flame hissed green for a moment, then rose. It didn't smell like burning money, it smelled of salt and old fish. I skipped sushi that week. Luckily, I'm not a big fan of fish. By the third night, the app allowed me to log back in, and as if nothing had happened, the rides returned. Since then, things have been pretty smooth. Not every night shift is terrifying, some are just plain weird. Like the woman in the bright yellow dress who got into the car without a word and just whispered her destination. The swamp. Or the 2 men who stared straight ahead without blinking and screamed every time we passed a fire hydrant. The weirdest ride I ever gave was last October, around 3:12 a.m., that dead time when the world feels empty. I was parked near the outskirts of the city, engine idling, watching a moth repeatedly hurl itself at the windshield. A ping sound echoed, no address, just coordinates. I almost declined. Nobody lives out there, just farmland and old warehouses, but I was short on rent, and by now I was pretty good at following the rules. The profile was blank. The name just said driver. I accepted. As I approached the pickup point, my headlights illuminated something standing in the middle of the road. A man, featureless, completely still, dressed in old-fashioned clothes, a black hat, a long coat, his hands clasped in front of him as if attending a funeral. I stopped. He didn't move. I glanced at the app. The pin was directly on him. Against my better judgment, I rolled down the window a few inches. "Hey, are you driver?" The figure gave a single nod. I unlocked the doors and pulled up the rules on my phone. Still the same old rules, unchanged. I reread the first one just to be sure. Do not look directly at the passenger. Use the rearview mirror if necessary. Right. He opened the back door and slid in, saying nothing, just sitting there, the seat creaking under his weight. I pulled away from the curb and merged back onto the main road. The silence was suffocating. I quickly glanced in the rearview mirror. At first, I saw nothing, then the mirror fogged up, as if someone had breathed on it from the inside. I wiped the mist with my thumb and nearly jumped out of my skin when I saw what appeared underneath. The figure in the backseat wasn't looking at me. It was holding something, a large postcard pressed flat against its face like a mask. Long fingers curled around the edges, fingers with nails so long and yellow they looked rotten. Just seeing them sent a cold wave down my spine. I leaned forward slightly, just enough to read the 2 scrawled words on the card in what looked like red ink or blood. I couldn't tell. "Just drive," it read. I didn't ask questions. I drove. 40 minutes we glided past silent fields, deserted gas stations, and stretches of road I swear I'd never seen on any map. I didn't get destination updates, no meter ticking, just me, the road, and the thing sitting behind me. The silence was thicker than usual. The only sounds were the low rumble of the engine and the occasional creak of the chassis, as if the car itself felt uneasy. I kept checking the rearview mirror, but it kept fogging up. Time after time, I wiped it clean with the back of my hand, each time revealing the same thing: he was getting closer. At first, he sat upright, rigid, almost robotic. Next time, he was leaning slightly forward. Then, his knees were almost touching the back of my seat. His hat was old and stained, the brim pulled low, just enough to cover most of his face, torn and frayed at one corner as if dragged through gravel. I couldn't see his eyes, but I could feel them, like hot breath on the back of my neck. Cold sweat began to bead on my forehead. I didn't know what to do. No name, no meter, no destination. That had never happened before. I gripped the steering wheel tighter and kept driving. My heart pounded louder than the tires on the asphalt. What would I do if he refused to get out? What if he just sat there until the sun came up? Something bad would happen. I didn't know exactly what, but I knew the rules. This wasn't just a scary passenger anymore. Exactly at 4:00 a.m., he tapped twice on the window. I pulled over. Before I could say anything, the door creaked open and slammed shut. I checked the mirror. The fog was gone, the seat empty except for one thing left behind. There was a small envelope with a fancy wax seal. Inside was a wad of old, crumpled bills tied with a luxurious red bow, not a single cent more than the fare. Thank God. I set it aside and just sat there for a while, just breathing. Finally, the car was quiet. That night seemed like a long time ago now. I'm more seasoned these days. Passengers without a destination, just another day at the office. It took me a while to realize they weren't looking for a location. They were looking for a feeling, a reaction. They're greedy like that, but I've learned a lot since then. I know not to feed their desires. You're cold enough to them for long enough, and eventually they'll leave. I'm calmer these days, like a prison guard managing unruly inmates. I even bought a handgun. It sits in the glove compartment, hardly ever used. But if someone in the back gets bold, starts getting too close, just a flash of the gun is usually enough. They snarl, they curse, they slam the door, the fare left on the seat, not a penny extra. I don't mind, they can't touch me anyway. But tonight, I feel a little more anxious than usual. Not because of work, no. Supernatural taxi passengers are easy peasy compared to what I have to face tomorrow. My son is getting married. I haven't been involved in his life. Not really, and that's my fault. I kept my distance after the divorce, telling myself he'd be better off without me hovering around. No awkward visits, no clumsy father-son talks, just distance. But when the invitation arrived, I cried. I just sat on the sofa, clutching the envelope, and wept like I hadn't in years. There was no way I was going to miss it. I'd missed too much already. I should be resting now, preparing for the big day, but I needed to calm my nerves for some strange reason. This job helps me do that. At the stroke of midnight, the app chimed, first ride of the night. I took a deep breath and swiped to accept, trying to focus. Just get through this shift, then straight to the hotel, change into my suit, and go to the wedding. The guy who got in looked normal. Collared shirt, dark jeans, clean-cut appearance. He slid into the backseat without a word. I started driving. A few blocks later, he spoke. "Big night tomorrow, huh?" I nodded. "Yeah, my son's getting married." "Oh, that's great. What's his name?" I hesitated. "James." He repeated it slowly. "James, strong name. What time's the wedding?" 2:00, I said, my eyes fixed on the road. He chuckled. "Wonderful, you must be very proud." I forced a smile but didn't answer. Something about the way he asked all these things unsettled me. Not the usual small talk questions, but the way he leaned in when he spoke, as if he already knew the answers, as if he were confirming something. We stopped at the drop-off point. He thanked me, got out, and just stood there on the curb, staring through the rear window. I looked straight ahead, pretending not to notice. After a few seconds, he disappeared into the darkness. I sat there in silence, my hands still on the steering wheel. Strange, even stranger than usual. Then I suddenly remembered the rules. I'd forgotten to check them tonight. I pulled up the app and swiped to the rules. Damn it, there was a new one. Do not discuss your personal life with passengers. I stared at the screen as if I'd misread it, as if it had always been there and I just hadn't noticed. But I knew better. That rule wasn't there yesterday. My heart began to pound. I pulled over, opened the app, and sent a message to support. A simple question. New rule, I violated it. How serious is it? What should I do? No response, just prolonged silence. Last time I broke a rule, it took 24 hours for an answer, and I didn't have 24 hours. Finally, I drove back onto the road. I figured I'd take a few more rides, keep things simple. Maybe if I didn't make any more mistakes, everything would be all right. The next few passengers seemed normal, mostly silent, but there was a strange atmosphere, a kind of smugness. A few giggled under their breath. One guy kept glancing at me in the rearview mirror, as if I were the punchline of some inside joke. Another girl wouldn't stop smiling, just an overly wide grin as if she knew some dark secret about me. It started to wear on me. By the third such ride, my stomach was churning, and then things got worse. My next pickup was a woman standing alone on a street corner in full wedding attire. A long white dress, a veil, a bouquet that looked brand new, pristine. Not like a Halloween costume, this looked genuinely expensive. She didn't speak when she got in.